Yikes. Came up on us quick. Hey folks, Jon B, 1DFS. Coming at you here. It's 10/20/2021. The year has gone by so quick, I don't know what happened or where it went, but we're here and we're happy to be live. Trying to make sure that we can do what's right for you guys, trying to make sure that we're giving you good information. Yesterday's broadcast turned into kind of a mess. Unfortunately, I had my music really, really loud and nobody told me, and so you can barely hear me talking, but those are the kind of growing pains I was talking about when we started this and said to just make sure to bear with us because I'm a DFS veteran, but I am not a streaming veteran by any means whatsoever. So hang with me as we get past kind of some of that stuff. It's just going to be a matter of figuring out what our volume levels look like, what's important, and just trying really, really hard to make sure that everything is done right. It's something to me where we want to bring you the very best that we can, and we will do the best we can in doing so. So I hope that this broadcast is better. If it's not, we'll continue to tweak it. It will continue to get better, and with any luck, eventually we'll get this thing figured out. So let's talk about basketball. So yesterday's slate, 2 games, 4 teams. We talked a little bit about it. My model is so incomplete. I'm basically starting fresh on that right now. I don't even have my standardized names correct yet, so we're doing the best we can on that. But so basically we're using it more or less as a cheat sheet. Today is a whole different slate than yesterday. Yesterday's slate, 4 teams, like I said, not a lot of basketball information to pick from as far as stats, things like that, so we were using a lot of last year's data. It still turned out pretty good. I mean, I had a little bit of a snafu right at lock. I was uploading 150 lineups, and boom, it locked. I just should have started uploading maybe 30 seconds earlier, because what ended up happening was it cut me off in the middle of my lineup. So I got 52 lineups in, not 150. So kind of a bummer, but 52 lineups is better than 0 lineups. It's better than 1 lineup. I still had an 18% ROI on that 52 lineups, which was good. Any day that you're making money at DFS is a good day. Because believe me, there's going to be plenty of days where even though you might have some lineups in the money, I mean, you're losing your hand, or you're losing your shirt hand over fist. I don't know how many sort of silly colloquialisms I can fit in there, but you know how it goes. The big wins pay for the rest of the days. So at least that's the goal, is to have some big wins. And with any luck, we'll get there. We'll do the best we can. We'll keep trying to make it happen as much as we can. And I hope, beyond hope, that you guys either have fun just watching me make a fool of myself, or maybe make a little money too. Keep in mind, nothing I say here is law. Nothing I say here is binding or important. It's just my opinion, based on my numbers and based on my thought processes. I've been watching basketball my entire life. Back in 2013, that would get you by. Enough basketball knowledge would get you ahead of the field, and you could basically cash every single night. The data is so much more extreme and available than it used to be. It's hard for me to say that it's easier today. It's not. It's much, much harder, in my opinion. That being said, if you think about it, if you put your mind on it, if you do your research, if you look at the data, you can definitely increase your odds. There is no question about that. There are people that make a living doing this, and only this. So those people, although some of them, have the analytic mind, really it's just about making sure you're looking at all of the right things, putting the best players on a team, and that's it. I mean, people go, what's the secret? You say, play the players with the best scores. So it's not rocket science in reality, but some people might disagree, I guess. Today, 11 games, the unofficial start of the season, as many people refer to it, 22 teams, craziness all the way across the board. At some point, I will have to shut down. I hope to get through talking about all 22 teams in the next 45 or 50 minutes. We will see, because there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. So hang with me just one second. Let's see. I just want to check on one thing. Forgive my clickety-clackety keyboard. I like it that way. Extra clickety, extra clackety. Let's see. Okay. All right. I think we're good. So if you have any questions and you get in the chat, feel free to shoot them at me. If not, that's fine too. If you want to add them after the stream when it's up, you can also do that. I'm totally fine with that. Otherwise, you can shoot me messages. My Twitter is at Jon B 1 DFS ONE DFS. Otherwise, the joke is at Jon Bone DFS. So that's just kind of how that worked out. We're gonna make light of it to avoid the jokes if at all possible. But it is what it is. So real quick here, I'm gonna try to see. Get my. All right, I think we're going to start talking about Indiana at Charlotte, and that's really just because that's how ESPN has it listed. So as far as the Vegas odds go, let me pull up my screens now. You'll see me looking back and forth. I actually have 3 screens, and my camera's kind of in the middle, sort of off. So if I'm going back or forth here, don't worry. I'm not like, I don't have any issues. I'm really just looking at 3 different screens with 3 different sets of data and 3 different things. So that's okay. Hang with me. I've just got to get some of it moved now up onto the screen. That is not it. There's the group. Okay, good. There is that. All right, Indiana at Charlotte. Now, if we're looking at this game, 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Eastern, I believe that is when lock is. I haven't actually put any lineups in yet. That's usually a later in the day kind of thing for me. And sometimes that bites you in the heels, and sometimes it doesn't. So let me check injury reports real quick here. Oh, yikes. Okay. All right, so taking a look, let me move this over so that you can see my screen. Let's see. Okay. To move that over kind of to the middle. All right, I hope you can see that. So what we're looking at here, we're just going to look at the cheat sheet. I have it set up right now to just show this game, and we will go through and kind of look at it that way and try to get through it probably as quickly as possible. Having to talk about 22 teams in 40 minutes, that's going to give me about 2 minutes to talk to a team about each team. I'm not sure that I'll be able to do that. My wife says I talk too much or that I yabber too much, which is it's probably true. But bear with my broken model right now. The names are not re-standardized, so there'll be some blank players. I don't have rookies added yet, and that's just because I don't have any data for them yet. And so I could use preseason data. I'm not going to do it. I think we'll just kind of have to go by our gut. In 2 weeks, we'll have more data, and my model will be quite a bit more complete, Lord willing, by then. So it's one of those things where today we'll look at the tops, we'll see who's there, we'll try to get a feel, and we'll go from there. Taking a look at, let's see, taking a look at Charlotte. If we look at this game, I mean, obviously, it's kind of a return team from last year with a few exceptions, Oubre and so forth. You know, it's one of those things. In this game, looking at this, I mean, if we're looking at LaMelo Ball, 34.69 fantasy points per game, 28.8 minutes per game. Let's see, his usage 26.1 last year, pretty good. Almost hit value as an average, 4.6 times value. Hopefully we can get that number up a little this year. 1.2 fantasy points per minute. You're going to have to get 37.75 points out of LaMelo Ball today in order to make him worth playing. It's going to be tough. I think in this matchup against Indiana, I think it'd be hard for him to meet that number. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm really thinking you're going to end up more like 32. Now, that's not a total bust. 29.5 or less would be a complete bust. And anything 46 or above would be considered a boom, at least based on my information. So it's one of those things where LaMelo's an okay play. If you ask me, $7,600 might be an overpay for him. If he was $6,800, I'd feel a whole lot better. about him. But he is a play, although not a great value play. Let's look at the injury report again because I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys good information. According to the injury report, Jeremy Lamb, day-to-day, probably not playing. Keelan Martin, probably not playing. Justin Holiday, questionable for season opener. He may or may not see some minutes. Karis LeVert, of course, out till the 25th. TJ Warren out basically forever, probably at this point, it feels like. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I don't know. Malcolm Brogdon has a shoulder injury, but he is expected to play in the season opener. Excuse me. Looking at the starting lineup for Indiana, Brogdon, point guard, Chris Duarte at shooting guard, which is very interesting. Justin Holiday is listed as the small forward starter, Sabonis, and then Turner, which I think we kind of knew. They're just kind of an automatic pencil in there. But Chris Duarte, I mean, yeah, I don't know quite what you're going to get. Let me take a look and see if I have any information on him at all right now. And I mean, it doesn't look like I even have him listed. I've got to really go over these rosters and rebuild this thing from the scratch, which I've kind of started to do, and it's just a matter of trying to make sure that the information is there and having time to do it all. It's been a big thing. So it doesn't appear that I have the information there. Let me see here. Interesting. It's really very interesting. Let's see. It's interesting he wouldn't start Gordon Hayward there. Now I know that they're going to need him off the bench, but with Hayward and Rozier there, it's really interesting that they are not going that direction. Duarte could end up a value play. I don't know what his salary is. I'm not showing it. Let me double check. Okay, well that's why, because I'm looking at Indiana and Charlotte in the wrong spot. Okay, let's double check here. So, I just have this selected wrong. Okay, game, okay. Players, team, there we go. So, I actually want to switch that over to Indiana. And these are some of the growing pains we're going to go through, you guys. There we go. That makes so much more sense. I had it on Charlotte. I was trying to talk Indiana and Charlotte at the same time. They're not the same team, obviously. Wow, looking at this one, it's Sabonis and Turner. Sabonis is at 9,700. I wish he was more like 9,000, but he's a smash play most nights. I've had good luck with Sabonis. Following him, like I said, 46.05 fantasy points per game. That's Fanduel points per game at 36 minutes per game, 24.1% usage. I wish that was higher. When you get up to the higher salaries, it's harder to hit value, but 4.7 value on average on 1.28 fantasy points per minute last year. You're going to need 45.63 points from him in order for him to sort of hit what you want, and 56.5 for him to be considered a bust. Now, anything 34 3/4 and below, and you would consider that a bust, and so I really don't think you're going to run into too many of those problems. I think he's a low 40s type of guy most nights, but you definitely want to get mid 40s or higher on fantasy points for him. Man, it's one of those plays. Karis LeVert, 37.41. Of course, he is actually out through October. Man, goodness sakes. Okay. Brogdon will play, 37.41 also, fantasy points per game last season, 34.5 minutes a game, so he's definitely going to get the time, 25.9 usage rate on 5.1x value, 1.08 fantasy points per minute, and you're going to need to get 36.63 out of him. Brogdon's very interesting because one day he'll get you the 9 steals and the next day he won't. So it's kind of hit or miss. Will he get there? I don't know. At 7,300, I wish he was more like 6,500 until we have some information. I think the really smash play on this one is going to be Miles Turner. 33.2 fantasy points per game last season. $6,200 salary feels good to me. And I really like the 31 minutes per game that he got last year also. So him being over a fantasy point per minute type guy, I really think that that's going to be an interesting play. And I think Miles Turner, if I'm looking at this starting lineup, Miles Turner is where I'm going. Now, Duarte, I really don't have any information on at all yet. But hopefully in the next few days, We will at $4,500. Anytime you're getting a starter at $4,500 or low value, the chance for high value is there. So we're going to keep an eye on him for sure. Let's see. I didn't see Jeremy Lamb. No, yes, Jeremy Lamb day to day, so he's not going to play. Going through, I don't have any information on Isaiah Jackson. You can expect O'Shea Brissett to get maybe a little time off the bench, but he's not going to be someone you're going to want to have in a ton of lineups. Going down the line, not a lot there. I mean, really, in this lineup, you're going to be looking basically for Sabonis and Turner and a little bit of Brogdon sprinkled in. You can definitely get to McConnell at 6,200. That could be kind of a contrarian play, 27 fantasy points per game. If McConnell was to, let's see. If McConnell was to boom, I mean, I think you're looking about 32 to 33 fantasy points. Now, this is a guy that can go bananas again in the on the stocks and have a ton of game and once in a while and kill you with 50 points. Is that going to happen? Who knows? Probably not, but don't quote me on any of that. So I think that pretty much takes care of Indiana. Let's go back and talk about Charlotte because, let's see this one. It's going to be important to make sure we're covering our bases here. Okay. Charlotte, let me get my injury report, and then we got to get through some of these. Charlotte's only listing Miles Bridges as probable, questionable for the season opener. I hope he plays. He's a guy I like to go to for sure. Kind of a mid-range type of guy as far as price and value goes. He's listed today at 6,300, 26 fantasy points per minute. He's one of those guys where, man, he could get you the 40 or 50, but sometimes he'll just come out and throw up a stinker, and that's just how it is. I'm interested to see Oubre and see what he can do, see if he can do something out past the three-point line and go from there. Now, LaMelo Ball, we talked about 34.69 fantasy points per game. Anytime you're getting 37 and 3/4 or more, I mean, to me, based on my numbers, that's what you got to have out of him. 37.75, and he's averaging 34. Now, he needs 46 to boom, and 29 could be a bust. So depending on the score of this game and the rotation, which really I don't know what that's going to look like yet, it's really a hit and miss, based on that. So looking at Terry Rozier, similar 35-minute a game guy, 35 fantasy points a night type of guy, 23.9 or 24.4 usage rate, and hits value very close almost every night at 1 fantasy point per minute or 1.02. You're going to need 36 points out of him, fantasy points out of him for him to make value. Gordon Hayward's very interesting. I love this guy. I've always been a fan. Injuries have kind of killed him a little bit. The fact that he is who he is just, he's sort of unapologetic about it. He plays his game. It's hard for me to pay $7,000 for Gordon Hayward unless I'm certain that he's going to hit value, which I'm not. Depends on the matchup. PJ Washington's another guy who I love, and at 6,800 probably will make it into a handful of my lineups, but I really don't think he's a guy you can totally rely on. And that's kind of the rub with this team. Who's going to put up numbers every night? Is it PJ Washington? Is it Gordon Hayward? Is it Terry Rozier? Terry Rozier's a guy, he might get you 35 one night, he might get you 13 the next night. It's going to be kind of a tough play. I've seen some projected minutes on Jalen McDaniels, who I love. Of course, Jaden being on the Timberwolves, I'm a fan of both of those guys. 19.2 minutes per game on 17% usage rate last year. Low value, 3.1. But I think if he gets some real opportunities this year at 4,900, he could be a sneaky play. Now, your guess is as good as mine as far as how many minutes he'll get in the opener, but within 2 weeks, again, we should know a lot more as far as the information goes. The Martin brothers, or Cody Martin, I don't know what you're going to get from him tonight. On this team, really, it's so subjective. So you can definitely get to LaMelo Ball. I think he's a little bit overpriced. I like Terry Rozier a little bit. I like Gordon Hayward a little bit. These are guys I'm going to have between 5 and 12% in my lineups. PJ Washington I might have a little more of, maybe 17% of my lineup, something like that, 17 to 20%. Plumlee, I probably at 6,500 will avoid. Bridges, we don't know if he'll play or not. And Oubre is one of these guys. He might be the smash play on this team tonight. But as far as I know, I will probably stay pretty light on him tonight. Okay, that's game one. 10 to go and not a lot of time. So let's go and look. Hang with me here. Okay. Okay. Okay, where we go? Teams. Here we go. All right, going back here. Now we're going to look at, let's see, what's the next game? I failed to mention Indiana at Charlotte. 223.5 is the combined total on that one. And man, it looks, the spread appears to be pretty even on that one as well. So let's look at Bulls Detroit. If we can find it here. There it is, right there. Okay. Starting with Chicago. All right, looking at Chicago's injury report, Troy Brown Jr., questionable day-to-day. Marcos Simonovic, questionable for season opener. Kobe White, out. Looking at a December return there. I think we're aware of that. That's okay. This is the new look Bulls. I'm really excited to watch this game, or at least to watch parts of this game and see kind of where we're going with it, because this is a team that will compete at least in the middle of the road in the East, I think, without any issues. The move that they made for DeRozan, although some people will complain about this or that and how and draft picks, whatever, to me, the fact is that they got him, and then the question now is how are they going to use him, right? So that's a tough one. My numbers on Vooch didn't come up because the naming standards aren't working right now. Looking at 45.83 fantasy points per game last year. Vooch is a guy who went to tons and tons last year. The reason is because most people don't. They go with Jokic or Nurkic, or they go with Karl Anthony Towns or somebody like that. And Vooch usually is, when he plays, he's in the optimal lineup or near it. So maybe optimal adjacent, we can say. Bulls at Detroit, 218.5 is the combined total. Looks like Detroit is a slight dog on that one. Looking at this team, though, I mean, Vucevic, he's a guy, man. He hits value for the whole season. And to me, he's going to be in probably 15 to 20% of my lineups for sure. I'm not sure how Zach's going to look next to DeRozan. Not really. It's going to be one of those things where they might play just really, really well together, similar to how Zach and Wiggins played together in Minnesota. But Zach LaVine, 40.78 fantasy points per game. 35.1 minutes per game. Let's see, 31 usage. So, I mean, he's the guy, at least last season, where the ball was in his hand most of the time. He averaged 5x value on the season, 1.16 fantasy points per minute. Now, you only need 40 points out of him to make him hit value, which, in my opinion, is not going to be a problem probably for Zach. So, it's one of those things where, could you get 49 and consider him a smash play? Absolutely. Depending on how he plays next to DeRozan. DeRozan, you're going to need 37.38 to get value out of, and anything over 45 would be considered a boom. To me, I think you're going to probably see DeRozan land somewhere in the low to mid 30s, 32, 33 fantasy points or Fanduel points, if you will. And then go from there. Now, Lonzo's, it's going to be different than New Orleans. So last year, 31.8 fantasy points per minute, 20.5 usage rate. Didn't quite hit value, but he was over a fantasy point per minute. 35.5 is what you're going to be looking at for him as far as what you need in order to consider him a good play. Are you going to get it? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe. Let's look at the starting lineup here in Chicago. Let's see. Lonzo Ball to point, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Patrick Williams, and Nikola Vucevic. Now, if we're looking at Patrick Williams here, 20.1 fantasy points per game last year, played most of the season on the bench, so those numbers are definitely going to change, or at least I hope that they change. I love this guy, 27.9 minutes per game last season, and a value player, 5x value is what he averaged on the year last year. And let's see, wow. Is that right? 0.72 fantasy points per minute. That's not going to cut it. On this team, he's going to have to be fed. He's going to have to get the ball. He's going to have to throw it down. and he's going to have to play in the post some night. Maybe he doesn't want to do that. I don't know. At $4,000, I'm going to take a flyer on him and have him in more lineups, probably than I care to admit. That's a great price. Tony Bradley also, we're going to have to figure that out. Who's going to end up getting the real minutes there? I'm not really sure with Vooch guaranteed basically to get 35 plus. So I guess we'll have to see what happens there. It's really interesting. Looking at this team, definitely get to Vucevic if you can. I think you'll probably be under the field as far as ownership goes. I don't have any ownership projections at this point. Levine, I'm probably skipping because I don't know of his interaction with DeRozan. Lonzo, again, I'm probably skipping there too. I might get a little Patrick Williams at $4,000. I think that could be a really good value play. Alex Caruso also, depending on minutes, at $3,700. There's a guy that can fill it up, but probably playing off the bench. These other guys, obviously Kobe White injured. When he comes back, we're going to be looking hard at him. But as far as Chicago goes, I think that is pretty much all I have to offer today. Let's move on quickly here to Detroit and see what we have going on here. Of course, it's a huge bummer. Cade Cunningham, questionable for season opener. Basically, I think I heard that he's not playing. Keep your eye on the news, though, because any information I give you now, 4 hours from lock, could definitely change. Then we just don't know. Always pay attention to who's injured and who's not. Looking at this team, I'm not certain what to do with this team. Jeremy Grant, 35.2 fantasy points per minute, $7,200 salary. Not too terrible. I wish he was more like 6,500, but you're going to get 34 minutes out of him. He's going to hit value, 1.04 fantasy points per minute. And I think in order to make him worth anything, you're really going to have to hit about 36 and a quarter. Now he's going to have the ball in his hands quite a bit to do that. And last year he had a 28.5% usage rate, which allowed for that. So will he get that this year? I don't know. I'm kind of hoping for Smash Kelly Olynyk this year. I love that. At 5,800 though, I'm not sure he's worth the risk today. I really liked him last year when he was between 4,000 and 5,000, and he'd come in and get smashed down 40, 50 fantasy points when he played for Houston there. Sadiq Bey, I guess we'll have to check on the minutes. Let me look at the starters on this one here. Detroit has Killian Hayes starting at point guard, which can be very interesting. Josh Jackson, shooting guard. Sadiq Bey is the starting small forward. Jeremy Grant at power forward, and of course Isaiah Stewart at center. So these guys' minutes are going to change up. These numbers are basically going to end up irrelevant by the time we're done with the first 2 weeks. And we'll have updated data, of course, on a daily basis to use that. At first it'll be limited, and we'll just kind of have to play our gut a little bit. I really love the idea of Cade Cunningham on this team. I want to see what he can do, and we'll go from there based on what's actually going to happen going forward. Looking at starting someone like Killian Hayes. Now today, $5,200 for Killian Hayes might seem like a little bit of an overpay, but really you don't know what you're going to get defensively out of Chicago, so it might be worth playing him in maybe 10% of your lineups. Corey Joseph, veteran, you know what you get out of him. Sometimes, mostly, not a lot. And it's going to depend on minutes. I mean, looking down this list as far as who's going to end up with minutes and who's going to not. I love Hamidou Diallo if he can get the time, if he can get the ball. 22% usage rate when he does. But this is a guy that have hit average 6.6x value last year. You only need 23 points out of him to get him to hit value. So there's a guy to keep your eye on as far as a sort of a sneaky value play potentially. I don't know if he'll be in the rotation or not, and that's something that I don't think anybody's really going to know, at least for the first week to 2 weeks. Looking at this team again, just doing a quick rundown. You can get to some Jeremy Grant at 7,200. I think, though, at that salary, you probably can do better. I'm probably going to get to some Isaiah Stewart at 5,200. I'm probably going to get to some Kelly Olynyk at 5,800. And that's probably all I'm going to be looking at from this team. I guess we'll see how they mix. I guess we'll see what kind of player Cade Cunningham really turns out to be in the future. But going forward, yeah, who knows? Who knows? Okay, hang with me here while I get this switched over. Right. Where'd it go? Okay. We'll get it figured out. Okay. Where'd it go? Do you know? I don't either. Okay. Okay. Hang with me here while I get this fixed up. There we go. Man, I just couldn't get that to pop up for some reason. So let's do this. Let's look at the next game on the list. Boston at Knicks. I don't know how much time we'll spend on that, but let's take a look and find out. Okay, team, we're going to start with Boston, of course. All right, looking at Boston, starting the injury report, Al Horford out with COVID-19, listed as day-to-day, probably going to be one of those week to 2 week type of situations. He's a hit-and-miss guy anyway, and at his age, he probably isn't going to play 35 minutes a night anyway. Peyton Pritchard out, nose injury, questionable for season opener, whether he plays or not. That I don't know either. Taking a look here, Jason Tatum was like 5th on the list last year. And actually, well, we can just look if we bring back all of the teams. So, let's see. Now, where'd it go? Come on. Okay. Goodness sakes. There we go. Jason Tatum, 4th on the list of fantasy points per game last year at 44.95, believe it or not. And that is insane. So he's a player you're going to always try to find room for. Starting salary, $10,200. I'm not super certain if I'm going to really play him at $10,200 considering some of the other options. I think Karl Anthony Towns is right in that ballpark as far as salary goes, and that's a dude that'll put up 50 or 60 for sure. Tatum will definitely get you somewhere in the mid 40s, looking like last year 35.8 minutes a game on almost a 31% usage rate, which is crazy. 1.26 fantasy points per minute. You got to get 47.5 out of him to make him worth a play at this salary, and 59 for a boom. So it's probably a pretty low percentage of him hitting that boom. Anything 36 or below would be considered a bust. In my opinion, anything below 45 really probably a bust. There's not a lot to like on Boston, at least today. Jaylen Brown, 39.4. You never know how those two are going to play together. Now, he's 8,000. I wish he was like 7,000. I'd be much more interested in him. Marcus Smart at 6,500 feels like a little bit of an overpay also. Robert Williams, the Time Lord, I think 56. Let's see, plays $6,300 salary. I might be getting to a little bit of him. I think that we'll have to figure out kind of what his role is going to look like. Let's look at the starters here for Boston today. Marcus Smart at point, Jalen, Jason, Grant Williams, and Robert Williams. Well, Grant Williams, a power forward. That's very interesting as well. Taking a look here, he's $3,500. That's the min. So that could be a really, really interesting value play when it comes to this team. Yikes. Man, I got to up his minutes because he's listed 11.1 fantasy points per game on 18.1 minutes. But the likelihood that with Al Horford out and with him starting, that he's going to push probably over 30 minutes is going to really shoot his value up at $3,500, which is a crazy value on this team for tonight against the Knicks. And so maybe they do great, maybe they don't. It depends on what Thibodeau has to throw at them. But honestly, I really like that Grant Williams play a lot right there. Robert Williams at 6,300. Like I said, I probably will get to. Schroeder, I'm probably not going to get to. You could get to some Enes Kanter, especially with Horford out at $5,000, depending on the minutes. I don't think Josh Richardson's going to be the smash play that I've heard he is, but at $4,100, he's definitely going to be worth a flyer in my mind as far as maybe 10% of my lineups. 4,100 is going to be a great value. But really on this play, it's Grant Williams at $3,500 who I'm really excited about. The rest of these guys, you know what you're going to get out of Tatum and Brown and Smart. Are they going to be worth the money? Probably not tonight. Give it 2 weeks. We'll see what they're doing. Let's move on real quick here to the next team, which is going to be New York. Okay. You guys, I'm never going to get through all these games because we're running out of time. All right, let's see. We can talk about the Knicks real quick. There's so much to cover. Nerlens Noel doubtful for season opener. That is all we're really looking at. Now, Julius Randle, I like his $8,600 price tag here, 44.28 fantasy points per minute. It's not that far behind where Tatum was, 37.6 minutes per game. I think that might have led the league last year. I'm not totally sure. But you got to get 41.5 for him to get you. And at 1.18 fantasy points and a 5.1x value, I think you have a really, really good chance of getting your money's worth out of Julius Randle, and I'm definitely going to have him in a percentage of my lineups. Kendall Walker on this team at 6,500. Here's a guy who's probably going to get you, in my estimation, probably not the 33 fantasy points, but maybe more like 30. And it depends on if RJ Barrett can step up and Derrick Rose gets, what kind of minutes you end up seeing from them. Taj is an old soul off the bench there, and he won't get a ton of minutes. So as far as fantasy relevance, nothing to really think about there. And going down the list, I'm not seeing anything that's jumping out at me. Tibbs doesn't really play rookies in any kind of meaningful way. So really it's your top 5 or 6 guys that we're going to look at there. I like Mitchell Robinson. I don't know who does at $5,200. If he can get the minutes, he can get you the value. So that's going to be interesting. Dwayne Bacon, he's kind of an interesting character at only 18 fantasy points per minute, but at 25 minutes last year, he averaged 5.2x value. Now, on 0.7 fantasy points per minute, that doesn't do squat for you. You're going to need 23 out of him to hit value. But I think at 3,500, which is the min, there's going to be a small percentage for contrarian sort of value plays, and that might be one that you're going to want to just sneak into a handful of your lineups. Today, I think that's going to cover the Knicks. Let's see. Okay. What is the next game? By the way, the Knicks 216.5 combined. It might be a game to stay away from too at that level. Now, Washington, Toronto 223.5 combined. Let's take a look at Washington. Let's look at the game first. There we go. There we go. Washington, Toronto. Start with Toronto. Why not? Not going to be a lot to say, in my opinion, on Toronto. Starters on Toronto. Goran Dragic, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, Precious Achiuwa. Now, let's see here. Oh, my starting lineup list just went down. But that's okay. So let's just take a quick look here. Fred VanVleet. This is going to be an interesting team because, as you can see, there's not a ton of production coming from the top guys. Fred VanVleet, 39.46 fantasy points per minute on 36.5 minutes per game last year, 1.08 fantasy points per minute. Siakam, 1.1 fantasy points per minute, and Chris Boucher, 1.23 fantasy points per minute. Everybody else in this team is going to be questionable. I'm not certain what we're going to get from Dragic as far as minutes goes. So it's going to be one of these things where I'm not sure that there's going to be much to like from Toronto tonight. Definitely depending on the minutes. Precious Achiuwa might be someone to look at $5,000. Only 11 fantasy points per minute last year, but only 12.1 minutes per game. If he's going to get 25, 28 minutes, then that number could shoot way up. And at 0.92 fantasy points per minute on a $5,000 salary, it could definitely be something to look at. It's just really, 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 really kind of meh for me on Toronto tonight. So play at your own risk. Of course, anybody is, but there's a handful of guys at the top there that you can sneak in. The most expensive player is VanVleet at 8,800. Getting down into the value guys, there's nobody down here that I'm in love with, at least not tonight. And my starting lineups are still gone, so that's kind of horrible. So is what it is, but we'll have to kind of avoid that now. Going forward, let's check our Toronto injuries really quick. Watanabe questionable for opener, Boucher questionable for opener, Siakam shoulder won't be ready for the start of the season, but we kind of know that, so that's okay. Let's look at their opponent. Let's see, Washington. Wow, there's even less to like on this team, I think, than there was on Toronto. No Russ. It's going to be tough for them to win games. In fact, I expect to see them high in the lottery, and that is okay, if you ask me. Bradley Beal, of course, is a stud. He is who he is. 44.68 fantasy points per game last year. That was even with Russ on 35.8 minutes. He might get even more minutes than that this year. I don't know. His usage rate at 34 last year might go even higher. It is so tough. You need 44.5 from him to be considered value. He'll probably get it, considering at 34.1% usage rate that he's probably going to be the only guy with the ball the entire game. Forgive my Reebok emails here. Okay, Fanduel, it's all good. Value 4.8 last year. I expect him to hit value pretty much every night. At 9,400, I'm not quite sure that there is not a better play tonight. I'm not totally certain that I'm convinced. Other than that, I hope that Gafford can step up and take a jump this year at $5,500 tonight. That might be something to look at. Harrell is going to destroy on the second team, but I don't know how many minutes he's going to end up with. But a $4,000 salary, he might be someone that you can kind of sneak in again to a certain percentage of your lineups and then just keep your fingers crossed. I love Thomas Bryant, 26.3 fantasy points per game last year on 27.1 minutes. 7.5x values with that dude average. So depending on his minutes at the minimum, sneak some Thomas Bryant. And I actually think, let me double check the injuries. I get ahead of myself, of course. Oh, yeah. Thomas Bryant out, targeting December. So screw what I said on Thomas Bryant, but let's move forward anyway. Keep your eye on him for December, though, because when he starts, it's going to be crazy. Okay, let's take a look here. I've got to really squeeze some teams in because I got about 12 minutes before I have to go. And I'm never, ever, ever going to get to the rest of these teams. If I don't, I don't, and then that is what it is. 11 teams, it was going to be difficult anyway. Let's see. The next game would have been Cleveland at Memphis. So let's take a look here and find it here. Okay. Looking at Cleveland now, this is a team I found a lot of value in last year. Looking at Colin Sexton, 35.4 minutes per game on 29.7% usage rate. Here's a guy that averages a fantasy point per minute. I don't know what he'll do this year. It's interesting. At 7,900, I'm probably not going that way. I am looking at Jarrett Allen at 6,900. Definitely for a chunk of this game. I think the guys toward the top there. Who knows what kind of minutes Rubio is going to get? I like Chetty, but he's not going to get any minutes. Looking at Lowry Markkanen, he's definitely going to have to get some minutes based on what they paid for him. But it is what it is. Looking down this lineup, there's not a lot of guys to be in love with here. Can Okoro step up at 4,400? Maybe. Looked like 32.4 minutes per game last year. Will he get that this year? Probably not. I mean, at 18.7 his production, 0.5 fantasy points per minute. It doesn't seem like it's going to be enough. Kevin Love is old. We don't know how many minutes he's going to end up. Kind of a reunite there with Ricky, though. So I guess we'll see what they can do. Otherwise, for me, Sexton, maybe a little Garland, maybe. It's so early. I love to play Rubio, but I don't think he's going to end up getting the minutes. So we'll have to see who gets minutes here and who doesn't. Dean Wade, day-to-day. Dylan Windler, day-to-day. On this team, that's about it. I'm not going to probably get much out of them. So moving to Memphis, of course, we love John Morant. Now, he is the top fantasy producer on their team, but only averages 36.21 fantasy points per minute on 32 fantasy or minutes per game, 1.1 fantasy points per game. Now, Jaren Jackson Jr., I think he just got paid 1.2 fantasy points per minute, 25.9 usage rate. Hopefully takes a step forward. Slow-mo, Kyle Anderson, 29.5. That's it. There's not a lot to like on this team. It's really going to depend on rotations and minutes, and honestly, it's short of Morant, Jackson, maybe a little Dylan Brooks and Kyle Anderson. The only other player I'm liking at all on this team is potentially Desmond Bane or Brandon Clark at these salaries. Tillman's awesome. I wish he could get the minutes at 3,700. Beyond that, there's not a lot to like here on this game really at all. So let me take a quick look here. What's the next game? Cleveland and Memphis was 218 combined total. You guys, I hate to do it. I got to get my kids here in like 5 minutes. Let's look at Houston and Minnesota. Minnesota's my team. Of course, I'm in Minnesota. That's a 231 total. That's going to be up there for the night as far as totals go. So this is going to be a game you may want to pay attention to. It's definitely going to be a game I'm going to pay attention to. And it might just be the way to go also. So looking at this, let's look at Minnesota first, because why not? Yeah, I mean, looking at Karl Anthony Towns, let's look at injuries real quick too. Pat Bev suspended for being Pat Bev. Just for the openers, though, he'll be back. Jalen Noel, Jordan McLaughlin, not likely to play. They're going to be super, super short at the point guard today, especially if Noel and McLaughlin are out. Karl Anthony Towns is a dominator. That is what he does. It's 10,800. I'm going to have him in maybe 25% of my lineups tonight. I hope to be, I imagine that'll be kind of right where the field is. With Jokic playing, it's going to be tough. It's going to be maybe even a toss-up as to who does what. Now, I'm probably picking Towns over Jokic today. Anthony Edwards is a stud. He's got those kind of Kobe Bryant things going on. He's going to be kind of a high-volume shooter, maybe shoot a low percentage, but he's going to be fun to watch, and I can't wait. 7,600, I'm going to have him in probably 15 to 20% of my lineups. With being short at the point guard, D'Angelo Russell's probably going to play like 38 minutes tonight or more, and I really hope that he can be productive. At 7,500, I'm going to find him in some of my lineups as well. Malik Beasley also. Hang with me. Alexa, stop. All right. Sorry about that. Interrupted by Alexa, but we set her to do that, so that is what it is. Malik Beasley and Jaden McDaniels will definitely see time tonight. Beasley may even see a little bit point guard time just based on the fact that they're so short at that position. He's a guy that's getting 30 fantasy points per game on average anyway on 33 minutes normally. So between him and D'Angelo Russell, man, I mean, you're going to probably get north of 38 minutes each tonight, and which is going to be great. Looking at this team, I don't know what we're going to get from Balmero, but at 3,500, it might be a sneaky play, and it might be really tough. I'm definitely going to play a lot of Towns. I'm going to have some Edwards, but as far as this team goes, it's going to be Russell for me and Beasley tonight, just based on their point guard situation and the ball handling. We're going to finally get to see what Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell look like on a regular basis, provided they can both stay healthy. Anthony Edwards is an up-and-coming stud. Probably should have won Rookie of the Year. No, definitely should have, in my opinion. So judge me for that if you want. You don't have to. It doesn't really matter. Looking at this, though, there's so many cool young players on this team that I really like. But honestly, I have no idea what you're going to get out of most of them. Like I said, this is going to be the Towns and Russell and Beasley show tonight, with Anthony Edwards probably putting up good numbers as well, although I wouldn't put him as a ball handler. Now look at Beasley at $4,800. That's a no-brainer for me. I'm going to have him probably in 30% of my lineups. Total chalk in my opinion. And maybe I'm alone on that, but that's going to be something that's going to be really, really great for me tonight. Quickly, we're going to look at Houston because there is some good plays on that team, I think, as well. And then I've got to be done because I got to go get the kids. Tomorrow I'm going to time that better, and we're going to do a better show as far as the length, and we're going to get through all of the teams. Second show ever, a lot of bugs getting worked out, and so just bear with me. I appreciate anything. Watch for 5 minutes, watch for 10 minutes, watch for 1 minute. I don't care. Anything is better than nothing. Looking at Houston here, let's look at the quick lineup as far as the injuries go. Houston's listing no injuries on the injury report as of right now, which is insane. It does say Daniel House is a game time decision, not injury related. Also, John Wall out for obvious reasons because he's not with the team, and I probably won't be with the team. Looking at this one, Christian Wood, 39.18 fantasy points per game last year, 32.3 minutes, 25.9 usage. Let's go across the board, 4.8 value, so getting close on 1.21 fantasy points per night. You only need 40 out of Christian Wood to really make him worth playing today, and a 49 would be considered a boom. Now, I'm going to play a lot of Kevin Porter Jr. as I always do. 6,100 is a good salary for him, in my opinion, on 32 minutes per game. 0.94 fantasy points per game, but dude is a stud, and that's going to go way up this year, I promise you. So keep your eye on that. Other than that, looking at this team, I'm not really sure what you're going to get. I mean, David Nwaba's a guy who can fill it up, but how many minutes is he going to get? Dante Exum. Honestly, I feel like he got cut just the other day. So we'll have to see what happens there. I don't know where they're going to get points from. Maybe Eric Gordon. Yikes. He's like 69 years old. But at 4,600 at 25.45 fantasy points, it might be a good value play also, which is a little silly. But yeah, interesting. KJ Martin, Daniel Tice, Jae'Sean Tate, all value plays as far as I'm concerned on this team. Don't count on any of them to actually do anything for you. It's really going to totally depend. Christian Wood, Kevin Porter are obvious plays, at least for me. And then, like I said, Tice, Martin, Eric Gordon are value plays. Everyone else on this team, again, kind of meh. So I really apologize that we didn't get through every single team today, you guys. I'm running out of time. I got kids to pick up from school, and I really thought we were going to have time to sort of sneak it in. Of course, once you get talking, and that is what it is. So tomorrow we will get through whatever games there are for tomorrow. I think today we made it through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we made it through 6 of the 11 games. Not bad for 45-ish minutes. I wish we could have done better. Obviously, we did not. Pay attention, you guys, to these. Like, if you're looking for the information on the rest of the team, I recommend going and looking at Osimo. That's a site that I had used in the past and had good success with. Their YouTube shows are free, and so because I couldn't get through all the teams, go watch their strategy show, and hopefully they will give you some information that you need. Tomorrow, I promise I will get through every team. Next time there's 11 games, I swear I will set aside enough time. And I really, 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 really hope that going forward in the future, we have the ability to, hang with me here. We have the ability to get through everything, and I'm able to give you better information. Like I said, we're working on the model currently. That's going to be a lot better as we go forward. It's going to be a lot more rife with information, and I think that I will be able to offer you more as we go. I think today's hurdle was making sure that you could hear me, making sure that the music was good, and making sure that I am here. So 6 out of 11 games covered. The other 5, good luck to you.